welcome to episode 102 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast, recorded January 24th, 2020. My name is Ian and I live on Vancouver Island. I'm a student in preparedness, target shooter, and my farm's designated mediocre handyman.
And I'm Hughes from Nova Scotia. I've been a prepper for the last 6 years or so. I'm also a volunteer firefighter, volunteer search and rescue technician, and I came into this lifestyle to make sure that my family of 3 young children and my wife are taken care of, both short-term and long-term.
Well, want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air? You can buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the Tactical Velcro patch available at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
And hey, if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and like us on Facebook and submit a review on iTunes. Also, we want to hear your feedback, good or bad, or if there's just a topic you want us to cover, you can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
We got some highly detailed content for you this episode. We're going to start off with some preparedness-related news, then we'll let you know what we did for preparedness since our last episode. Then we'll get into the main topic, which is critical small-scale preps. News time. So, actually, the first article I have here, I'm actually trying and share a screen. I was playing with a new toy here. Let's see here. I got this one. It says that Californians are suffering unprecedented fire blackouts in January. So normally these guys are usually without power in summertime because everybody's running an air conditioner.
All right.
And so, of course, it increases resistance to the line because of the high draw on the current, and so they have to shut down a bunch of stuff to avoid setting everything on fire with these high winds that pop up. Well, now all of a sudden they're getting them in the middle of winter because people are heating their homes, and I guess the grid's already stressed out enough because the population's increasing. And so now they're actually having to do brownouts in the middle of January, which is the first time ever. So
that's interesting. One thing I thought about too is, the electric vehicle revolution, if you want to call it that, it's probably most prevalent in California out of any state in the U.S. or province in Canada for that matter. So I'm wondering how much that has to play into it. I mean, I don't know what the penetration percentages for electric vehicles compared to gas in California, but I would assume it's probably upwards of at least 1 or 2%. And I mean, if you think there's 37 million people in California, I think.
Yep.
That probably accounts for a fairly big draw on the grid, you would think, right?
Well, yeah, and they're mandating going all electric by 2030 or something like that. Like, there's no way that grid's going to be able to handle it.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, like, even BC Hydro, the guy said locally here that they can't expect more than 1 in 3 people to go on electric cars without collapsing the grid. So I can only, and that's just in the Vancouver area. So I can imagine, like, the whole state of California, which is warm enough. Oh, Al might be showing up here.
It's actually 4.8% in California. I just looked it up.
Yeah, so if they get even double that, can you imagine the brownouts that are going to happen then?
Right.
So that's kind of an issue for sure. Alan.
Good evening, guys. Apparently, I just needed to turn it off and turn it back on again, and now my internet's fixed.
Oh, the Rogers reset.
The Rogers reset.
All right.
Rebooted 3 times.
All right. So next news article, we got a really good one here, actually. This is going to set off some people off the deep end for conspiracy stuff, but here we go. So Prime Minister Trudeau urges Canadians to cancel travel plans after data reveals 1 million traveled over the holidays. And by data, they mean cell phone data. So they came out and actually told everybody that, yeah, we've been tracking everybody's cell phones involuntarily, and we can tell you by age, race, how much you make, and how far you traveled from your home, like residence, as far as what you did over the last holiday season.
So I'm wondering, is that just Google Maps data that they're pulling? Because I mean, if you go to, like, I think it's adsettings.google.com, and you're signed into your Google account, you'll see all the assumptions that Google has made about you. And I checked it out myself, and it knows I'm a 38 to 45-year-old male and all that kind of stuff. But I'm wondering if the government of Canada is basically using that type of data, including the Google Maps data on your timeline, to pull that. Or is it something else? Is it the COVID-19 tracking app? Is it...
Well, no, actually what it is, it's they said right in the article they're using location services off the cell phone, which I guess Google Maps does tie into as well. However, for them to collate all that data is extra special as well, because they obviously put some effort into that. But yeah, moving along, they just, I guess, just to show you that I won't pick on just one political party, I'll pick on them all. It was actually C-51 under Harper that they passed all this that allows them to track citizens involuntarily via their cell phone data and everything without any privacy concerns. So anyways, these guys were Yeah, they were telling us that we don't like you guys very much because you guys traveled when you shouldn't have been, and they actually even made statistics as far as which provinces were the worst offenders, how far you traveled from your home on average, and everything else, and pretty invasive as far as privacy concerns
Did
goes.
they disclose who was the most?
Ontario and Quebec.
No, no.
Come on.
Yeah, and I just kind of laughed. I was like, remember back in the day when Edward Snowden made headlines because he actually revealed how much the government was tracking our movements and how deep into our privacy they were. And now we actually had the PM be his own whistleblower this time, which was extra special. So,
Snowden tried to bring down the entire U.S. government with his data, with his information, and and then Trudeau says, "Hold my beer."
Yeah. So it was a really interesting article. So it's in the show notes. I recommend everybody read it because it's actually kind of eye-opening as far as that goes. And then the last one, just more for fun, just because it's more clickbait headlines than anything else. I had a one from the let's see here, the Daily Mail Online, which is not the world's best source, but anyway, yeah. So they're developing cyborgs. So they decided that they're going to start using actual living tissue to help robots move, and instead of actual mechanical actuators, they're going to actually use muscles. It doesn't have to necessarily be human muscles. They're actually going to use random animals and stuff, and create machine animal hybrids.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Isn't Boston Dynamics doing that already with their robotic dogs or something?
Well, they had the robotic dogs, but that was all mechanical, right? And so this is the first time they're actually using living tissue, grafting it onto the machine, and having the tissue act as the mechanical actuator versus a fly-by-wire versus type of thing, right? So this is the first time they've actually got a biological hybrid going. So
so what's the over/under until these things become self-aware?
and Skynet happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, this is just 2021 is just ticking right along with 2020, isn't it?
Just
2035 is my guess on that. Can we get a board going? Can we get a pool
I don't know,
going?
Moore's law, doubles every 2 years. It's going to.
Oh, it's not. I think it's half that now, isn't it? They used to be 18 months, and then. But just kind of off topic, but kind of on this topic as well. I saw a post on Facebook today where somebody said my neighbor just bought a wireless printer and left it open. So he basically printed a sheet on the printer that says, "Hello, I am Lucy, your printer. I've become self-aware," and the next thing you know, the printer's at the garbage bin.
That's fun.
Just so you know, I'm really disgusted with what you've been looking at lately. Yeah,
But imagine if somebody wanted to do that and just print a picture of something that is less than legal, and somebody else in a house walks by and finds it, right? You could do some real damage with that.
So
By the way, take a few minutes and go back to our internet security episode.
So I remember back in the early 2000s when you could buy a router from Future Shop or Best Buy or wherever, and it was not secured out of the box. You had to basically set this stuff up. Most routers in residential areas were wide open, right? So you can connect to the network. You could see the $C, the $admin, all the shares, the printers, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it was called war driving, where you drive around with a Pringles type antenna on the top of your car. I mean, it's a great way to get pulled over by the cops, but when connecting to random wireless networks and printing stuff off other printers and saying, if you want me to secure your wireless network, email this at and be $50 and we'll fix it up for you. And that's kind of how people pay their way through college. So, but yeah.
I guess that's one way to do it.
Yeah, it was war driving, and there was guys driving around looking for free internet and all things, right?
Right.
So.
Man, when I was a kid, it was garage door openers. They were all on the same. They were all the same codes. If you didn't change your dip switches, if you didn't change your dip switches, they were all the same. You'd go around just opening random garage doors.
1, 2, 3, 4 on the dip switches, right?
Every McDonald's in all of North America has the same Unican lock on their back doors. So it's a 5-button. It's a combination lock. It's 5 buttons in a vertical row. Every Unican lock ever produced has the same default combination, which is 2 and 4 together, and then the number 3. This is not new. This is nothing different. The number of times I've walked up and opened a door, is in the hundreds. You walk up and you just it's always the first code you try is the default code. Probably 75 times out of 100, it was never changed, and you can figure, and that's still the code, or 135. Because
You know what's funny, Alan, is I used to work at Blockbuster in the very early 2000s, and I clearly recall that was the code for the back
Yep.
for the staff door.
I have opened locks with the exact same code.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2 and 4 together and 3 is the default code. If you're ever up against one of those Unicans, those the old mechanical ones, they're 5 buttons vertically. They've got the square box. They're really boxy. There's a good chance that is the code.
Now, I would hope with the millions and billions we've invested in airport security that
I'm not answering that. I'm not answering that.
I can personally attest to the fact that there are Unicans on airports, and that they are some of them have been left in default.
Scott in the show notes has a question. People didn't know how to change them. I don't think it's that people didn't know how to change it. I can guarantee I know what happened. Whoever installed it didn't bother changing it and just gave the user the default code and said, "Here's the instructions on how to change it." They were like, "Why would I change it? It's got a code in there already." Not
It's super secret,
that.
like duh.
Yeah, super secret.
It's not 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, exactly. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it's got to be secure, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's there's a clear cutoff between the installer that doesn't give a crap whether this gets changed or not, and them just saying, "Here's the default code, change it."
Well, and that's also, it's not necessarily the installer, because the installer might have direction from whoever the construction manager is to say, leave it there and our security team will change it. And then that step always gets skipped because it's something that's supposed to be done by the manager and never gets done. Right? That's something that usually happens at move-in, right? So it happens all the time in construction, where we'll put a combination lock on a door so that the trades can get in and out to do construction. And then the plan is, once construction is finished, that code gets changed. We have no keys to recall. We have no, and then only the right people can get in. And then that step almost always gets skipped because contractors are always behind, and the store is opening while there's still contractors coming in and out the back door. And then the store is just operational. The contractor is finished, and they just never bother to change it. It's a matter of complacency.
Yeah.
Same reason that default passwords are still in use.
So zombie apocalypse, you can always get McDonald's hamburger buns to eat. You know the code.
Yep.
Pickles too, the pickle jars. Those are
Pickles
good
last
stuff.
forever, right?
Yeah, good stuff. Okay.
Pickle sandwiches.
And if you happen to have the tools and know how to change the combination, you might even find yourself a little safe haven.
Yeah, I mean, like, let's face it, those buns will never go bad, right?
That's right.
It's true.
Yeah.
Who was it? It was somebody on CGN had an apple pie on his desk, a McDonald's apple pie.
That's Trevor Furlot from Slamfire Radio.
That's right.
Trevor Furlot has had that was it Big Mac or was it Apple?
I thought it was an apple pie.
Apple pie, that's what it was.
Yeah.
He's had the apple pie on his desk for over 5 years, and it has not changed appearance, and it has not rotten or done anything. It's still there. And he was just talking about it about 10 episodes ago. It's still on his desk.
That's insane. It's disgusting what it is. Yeah.
Nothing artificial in that, right? No.
No. It's all good. All right, what we've done lately for preps, I guess. I'll start off, give you guys some time to compose yourself there. All right, so I worked most of the last week, so unfortunately I was not able to do much around the acreage, but I did make sure I took part in the Patriot Challenge from Canadian Patriot Podcast. So I did my 45 minutes of exercise every day, 2 liters of water, and then some. I try and polish off a couple of these a day. This week I was just working on a new skill, which is...
I held mine up to the camera too, but my camera's off.
Oh, there
Nice.
you go.
Smooth.
2 liters of water, so I did a new skill and did one thing to make my life better, which is a bit of a combo. I was doing some chainsaw work, but I learned a new way to bring down trees using ropes and kind of leverage, and a new way to cut the tree. And it basically involves making kind of like almost like a chair in the tree. Local guy taught me how to do that. Anyways, and I was doing pretty good. I was pulling down the trees in the direction I wanted them to come down, and it's actually a safer way to do it. The tree doesn't fall uncontrollably. It's like you control when it comes down with a rope. Except for one time when I had it kind of like slip and fall and kind of go the wrong way, and it starts falling towards one of the alpacas, who, of course, they were sitting there with the previous tree that had come down, and they were eating the pine needles off of it, and I had this tree coming down right for him, and I literally was sitting there trying to hold up a tree with a rope. And it was coming down right towards him. I was screaming his name and everything else. He's like, what? And literally the tree came down right on his back, and I swear to God, it would have killed the average human, or at least snapped their back in two. He literally didn't even flinch. He just kind of moved to the side and kept eating. And I was like, oh,
Sounds right.
okay. He's 25 years old. Like his bones are gonna be brittle, you would think. But anyway, so yeah, he didn't care. Anyway, but that was my little adventure on that, just to be extra careful with my tree felling. And then let's see here. Surprise, surprise! I did not do any CGN deals.
Whoa. Are you feeling okay, Ian?
Yeah, no, I didn't know what to do with myself. But I did have 24 hours sitting here I'm currently sitting in Edmonton, so I was enjoying the minus 20 weather, and I decided to sit down and plunk myself in front of YouTube for a while. And yeah, so I decided to check out, see what the cost benefit analysis was behind reloading shotgun shells. Because every American down south is like sitting there beaking off about how there's an ammo shortage and we're going to be out, and thanks to Joe Biden threatening to ban stuff, the ammo shortage is only going to get worse. And there's actually CEOs of like ammunition companies coming out on YouTube saying, "It's all good, we're trying our best, guys," and everything else. So I was like, okay, well maybe I'll try and see if I can mitigate this. And basically, still to this day in Canada, luckily, unless you're actually looking to do buckshot or like slugs, you're still way better off just buying pre-made shells because it's still cheaper. So unless by some chance you have access to like a free supply of lead and you can like, cast your own slugs and buckshot or something, but
Yeah, I knew.
Now, is there like an economy of scale at some point where it becomes economical to reload your own stuff? Like, do you have to hit a certain threshold or what?
I know some trap shooters that were putting out like 500 rounds a week that were reloading, and it made sense for them.
But even then though, the way Canada works is we don't do bulk deals per se. Like for example, say if it's like $5 for 100 primers, I wish. But anyways, if you buy 1,000 primers, it's just $50. There's no discount bulk thing unless you actually buy it maybe buy 5,000 case or something. But honestly, like I've been looking around and there's just no deals to be had.
So I've never really looked into it too deep, but I know that the local skeet club that I belong to, they'll do twice a year like a pallet deal where they'll basically order like a pallet of primers, a couple pallets of like a bunch of other stuff, right? And I think there's some significant cost savings to that, but you have to be part of that deal, right? Like they're basically ordering the stuff by the pallet as opposed to by the case or something. So
yeah.
The other thing I know too is I've got some friends that have gone to tire shops and gotten free lead. They just basically ask for like a bucket of lead from the tire weights, and they're doing, I don't know if they're doing birdshot, but I know they were doing buckshot with it. They were doing weights for like duck decoys and all that kind of stuff. But that's a source of free lead. You just go to a tire shop and you're like, do you mind if I get your lead, right? So
that used to be the case. However, it's all zinc now, most of it. And
oh, is it really?
Yeah. So back in 2008 or so, they started switching it over in California first, of course. And there's still some being used in lead, but for the most part, the vast majority is zinc. So that doesn't do you any good. And the melting point of zinc is actually really close to lead. The problem is that if you're trying to melt one, you might melt one into the other, and it screws up everything, and then it becomes...
So they're probably using zinc then for the decoys and stuff like that at this point.
Yeah, and the zinc about the decoys is it doesn't corrode like lead or anything else does, right? So or like steel does, so it's good that way. But yeah, same thing. Like so, with a pallet deal, that might have been the case a couple of years ago. But now, because these ammunition manufacturers are having such a difficult time meeting up with demand, I bet you there's no deals being cut for the next couple of years, anyways. But the good news is I'll talk about it later. But there's actually some Canadian source stuff we could talk about. That's actually a bit of a good thing. So that'll be under the. I want to get a new section going in the podcast here. We'll talk about that later. But that's about it for me.
Do you want to go next, Alan? Or do you want me to go?
I can go. Haven't put it in the show notes yet, but this week I did a fair bit of working. So I finished a course last week or 2 weeks ago. Everything kind of blending together these days. That was part 1 of 2. So I'm doing the second part. I just signed up for that. It's going to be in about a month. So I'm doing some coursework for that, some pre-work for that, and still doing working on the podcast challenge, doing the Ragnarok challenge, and doing as much as an hour, doing about an hour to an hour and a half a day of cardio and weights, trying to meet a threshold. I've got got some pesky testing coming up that will push me to my limits, and hopefully those limits are higher than other people's. So
awesome. Good luck with the testing as well, Alan.
Yeah.
For me, honestly, there wasn't much. The one thing I did do is there's 2 kind of outdoor lights on the side of my garage, and they're just fairly typical fixtures. So what I did is I found the deal on Amazon of all places. It was like a security floodlight LED, 3600 lumens or so. So I bought one of those on a whim, thinking, you know what, if it's junk, I'll just return it on Amazon. I installed it, and it's basically like turning the sun on. As soon as that detects motion, my driveway is just completely lit up right through the tree line, all that kind of stuff. So I mean, for
Nice.
$79, really decent investment. I mean, I wasn't expecting a lot. There was mixed reviews on it, and it could still junk out in 6 months. Who knows? But yeah, it was probably one of the best $79 I spent on Amazon. So, and unfortunately, that's really kind of all I've managed to do this week. January is kind of a bit busy month at work, so I've been putting in a lot of extra hours. But yeah, that's it for me, I guess.
Cool. I guess time for the main topic. So yeah, we're talking about basically we had Scott, I think it was, one of our listeners, basically said you should get some 10-cent items that will make or break your preps. I don't think you can buy anything for 10 cents anymore, so I kind of was thinking like under $10. But so yeah, stuff that will like kind of throw a monkey wrench in your plans if you don't have them. So anyways, as far as that stuff goes, most of the stuff that we're going to be talking about can't be reproduced locally, or you can't just make a fix yourself. It usually requires a trip to the store to fix it if you need it. So if things are down, you don't want to have to run to the store if you're under like a lockdown, or you're 2 hours from town or whatever. You just unnecessary trip would just suck, right? So usually when you need something the most is when you just discover that you don't have any spares or anything else. So I just thought I'd kind of break it down by category first off. So I had mechanical stuff. Anyway, you probably ran into this as well with snowblowers and stuff used, but like stuff like spark plugs. I mean, they're all machine specific, and they're relatively cheap. I mean, they're under $10 each usually, unless you get like platinum ones or something.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a trick I've done with that is whenever I buy either like a generator or any type of power tool, I'll see what the type of spark plug is. I'll usually order at least 5. I'll probably never go through that many for that, but I'll usually order at least 5. Typically, as part of the maintenance, every year or every 2 years, I'll change out the spark plug, and I always keep the one I change out because there's typically nothing wrong with it. The new one just makes it more fuel efficient. But another thing is with things like with generators, things that may leave my house, I take a pill bottle and basically put the spare spark plug in there and duct tape it around the frame of the generator. So if anything, I've always got it. I typically always make sure that I've got a spark plug changing tool, either in my vehicle or something. So just a little tip is try to leave a spare spark plug with the item itself, especially something like a generator, I guess.
It's a good idea with the pill bottle, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Like same thing when I get something new, I usually just run through the owner's manual or take a look on the plug itself, get at least a spare or two, and then I actually write down on the back of the package which one it's for. Like it's for the snowblower, log splitter, generator, or whatever. And that way, at least like I don't have to sit there and kind of match up. I just kind of got them organized up there. But yeah,
and the last time I was a bit of a weirdo, I walked into the pharmacy with a spark plug and I said, "Do you have a pill bottle that would fit this?" And she was like, kind of pulls some empty ones and she's like, "Would this fit?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "How much you want for it?" She's like, "It's all yours." I was like, "Thanks." So.
Or you get the nutritional supplements, same thing, like vitamin C or whatever. Like there's always like some sort of bottle coming out of our house that would be that about the right size, right? So
yeah.
That's definitely something. Same thing with oil, of course. Like, I mean, usually it's like a specific grade. Some people are running synthetic, whatever, but depending on the season, everything else, you need a certain grade of oil. And again, it's not something you can just crank out of a mixing bowl, right? So, having a spare couple quarts of oil for the sake of the cost, I mean, yeah, if you're running low on a generator, what are you going to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, in a pinch, I mean, if your specific engine takes 10W30 and you put 5W30 in it, chances are you're not going to. It's not going to be that big of a deal. I mean, if you have a vehicle that calls for 0-weight oil, I don't think I'd be putting 30-weight oil in it. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, mixing and matching those grades is probably not going to be that big of a deal, right? So,
yeah. So other than that, same thing with fuel lines. I mean, just because it's like I've actually twice in the last year needed a little chunk of fuel line, and I didn't have one, but now I got spares. Of course, I learned my lesson. Fuses, same thing. Just because, again, machine specific, usually even cars, like they all have different types of fuses. There's like 3 or 4 different main types, and they're so cheap, but if you don't have one, you're kind of stopped dead in the water, right?
Yeah, another thing too is most new vehicles now just, I mean, if you pull the fuse panel, the fuse cap, you can look on the back of it, and there should be at least 5 or 6 spares. It'll actually say spare. So you'll have some spares built into the panel. Worst case is if you have a fuse that's blown for something important, pull the fuse on something that's not as important. I mean, even if it's your radio. I mean, you know what I mean? Like if you don't need the radio, but you need your wipers, and switch the fuse out, right? I mean, but again, it's best if you do have some, yeah.
I don't know if I'd be able to give up my Taylor Swift though and sing along while I'm driving. Alright. Yeah, so anyways, the last thing I was just going to mention for the mechanical stuff is just because, again, it's one of those things where if you don't have it, small bottle of two-stroke oil for your chainsaws or motorbikes or whatever you might need it for, but because, again, two-stroke oil, you don't want to run a machine without some sort of lubrication if it's a two-stroke, and make sure you have a big vat of it, ideally, but yeah, a small bottle doesn't cost much to have one sitting around. And that's pretty much it for mechanical stuff, unless Alan had something. If he's there.
If you guys can hear me, I can hear
Yep.
you just fine. If your generator or whatever tool you have for mechanical stuff has a specific wrench, take that wrench and put it in with the spark plug. Like I have my generator came with a couple of wrenches that I can just use to tighten up and loosen bits and pieces around my, including removing the spark plug. So I drilled a hole in it and zip tied it to the frame so that I've always got it right there.
Fair enough.
Is it necessary? Probably not. Does it save me having to go find a thing when I'm looking for it? There we go. I know the right size right there without having to look.
Yeah, and well, most of the spark plug sockets are somewhat universal. There's only like 2 or 3 main sizes, right?
They are, but I found that some of my lawn tractor, where the spark plug is located is really hard to get to. So they provided the special tool for it, which otherwise I would basically have to dismantle half the engine to get the spark plug. It's kind of stupid, but yeah.
Cool.
And like with my chainsaw, I just have a pencil case from the dollar store, and I just put all my chainsaw tools in it. So the socket and everything that it comes with, and then another spark plug and the just the file I use to sharpen it, and I can just I put it on a key ring, and I can just attach that with a clip right to the chainsaw, so it's always there whenever I need to take it with me. Can't forget it.
Cool. Next section I had was just for lighting up the world, so to speak. Some people that run those propane-powered Coleman lanterns or whatever, like the lantern mantles themselves, kind of a one-off item, but like literally 10 cents a pop.
Yeah.
If you do use them, I finally got one, and they're actually kind of handy.
They're great.
Throw up a lot of light, but yeah, lantern mantles aren't exactly easily replaceable, but yeah, dirt cheap. So
they also throw out a fair bit of warmth too.
Yeah, that was actually kind of shocked.
Yeah, they're not.
Are they radioactive too?
Quite probably.
Quite probably, yeah.
I'm pretty sure they are, but anyways, I mean, I don't think it's anything to be concerned about.
I thought they were asbestos at first, but they're not, because they actually catch fire, right? They actually they burn and turn to kind of like a pseudo ash. That's how they get set up when you like light the mantle originally. Yep. But I don't know what they're actually made out of.
Actually, it says here thorium. So thorium is radioactive and produces the radioactive gas radon-220 as it decays. Despite its short life, radium quickly replenishes from its radio parent thorium-228. So yeah, it is radioactive, and it's using thorium as the element in gas.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm not using that inside anymore.
So yeah, the wife's gonna make me get rid of that now.
Finally got one, and it's going back on.
Now, it does say here that the byproduct can be inhaled if the mantle is being used indoors and is an internal alpha emitter radiotoxicity concern.
Well, there you go. So the 70s, we weren't wearing seatbelts. We were burning thorium. I mean, I'm surprised I'm still alive. But anyway, yeah.
I knew they were radioactive. I just didn't know which radioactive product they were using. But yeah.
Well, I got this the top for one of those 1 pound propane bottles that had the mantles on it and stuff. I think it was like $5, and I was like, oh yeah, cool garage sale find, right? Well, that explains it. They didn't want their radioactivity in their garage anymore. So.
That's the only possible reason.
Yeah, clearly. So Bic lighters and matches, obviously dirt cheap, dollar store items, and let's face it, I don't want to sit there and try and light a fire with flint and steel or the bow drill Tom Hanks style or anything else. I'd rather just have this stuff.
It's cool to be able to do that. Upcoming episode, but But it's so much handier to not have to do it.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the bushcraft experience of trying that, but at the same time, having a lighter is just, especially when I want coffee in the morning, trying to bow drill my way into a fire. I'm sorry, I just
No,
don't have
I,
patience.
I want to be able to do it, but that doesn't mean I want to have to do it.
Right. I wouldn't mind my kids having tried, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah,
That's
it's a great skill to
that's a
have.
stressful experience. From experience, I can say that. Like trying to get your kids to actually light your fire without matches. Oh yeah, patience. Yeah. So last thing,
In that, sorry, in there with making fires, cotton balls dipped in Vaseline.
yeah,
You can cram about 20 of those into a pill bottle, and that will. I usually wrap all those pill bottles in duct tape, so I've got a little bit more fuel to burn, because duct tape will burn actually pretty slowly, and those things burn for 2 or 3 minutes.
It's all about the steel wool and 9-volt
oh, see,
battery.
you guys are giving it away next week. Come on now.
Oh, okay, all right, fine. Strike that, bleep it out.
Yeah. Anyways,
just get Eric to bleep everything out.
so well, now somebody's going to copy us for sure. But we are doing fire starting next week for the listeners. Anyways, so next thing I was going to mention was the CR2032 batteries at the dollar store. You get 3 for $1, something like that.
Yep.
And I mean, tell me one thing that doesn't use those batteries at some point, like whether it be red dot sights, the computer CMOS, if you don't want to lose all your settings, tiny little flashlights, little push flashlights. I mean,
My kids' fire trucks. You know,
weight
the little fire trucks.
scales, everything.
Yeah.
Like even the reloading scales, they all use those. So yeah, I mean, those
The
one
batteries.
thing-
remote for my Apple box. Yep.
One thing I've started doing is kind of like on a consolidation thing is, if I have 4 different flashlights that use 4 different types of batteries, I'll get rid of all of them and I'll go to one standard, being like the 18650 or the AA or something, because I don't want to have 6 different types of batteries for 6 different types of flashlights.
I'm exactly
So
the same way.
I've really, I mean, it used to be like, oh, it was a great deal, so I got it, but it was using a 1400 type of battery. But just having all these different types of batteries just led to just a total inefficiency and having to always remember to bring the batteries or the right charger or whatnot. So I've really started to consolidate now, selling off stuff that has really exotic type of batteries and sticking to one standard, which for me is the 18650. So
I'm doing everything with USB rechargeable now, but same concept.
Right. And a lot of them, like I have an 18650 EDC flashlight now that has the USB charger in it, so I don't have to take the battery out to charge it in the charger. I can just plug it into the USB and that's it. But yeah, it's the same thing. I'm just going to the standardization. It's like the same thing I did with ammo. Like I didn't want to have 9mm, 40, 10mm, 38 special, 357. So the consolidation is huge, right? Having multiple firearms that use the same caliber and just stocking up on that caliber as opposed to having 15 different exotic, expensive calibers around.
Well, especially if you sell one, and then you want to get rid of the ammo, and then yeah,
Right, exactly.
yeah. So that's pretty much all I had for little light sources for now until next week. Tarps for Canadian Tire. I think I got them on sale last week for $3.50 each for the 9x12s.
Disposable tarps.
Yep.
I mean,
Disposable tarps.
$3.50. Who cares, right? So
You can wrap like 4 bodies in that, DOS
Yeah.
over the side, and
I've got some more expensive, like double layered or double sided with the built-in grommets and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I'll use those for shelters and all that kind of stuff that I'm making. But otherwise, those $3 tents, not tents, I'm sorry, tarps. I mean, I've got dozens of them, right? So
Yeah.
and I think
we talked
the
about that
$3 one's
too.
only like, I think it's only 4x6 or 6x8. But
they're
yeah,
9,
I mean,
they're 9x12 now.
9x12. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Look, that's a big that's a big tarp, man. You can do a lot with that.
Yeah,
And if you destroy it, who cares?
Yeah, no,
Right.
I actually use them seasonally now just to cover the wood for the rainy season after I've chopped it down and bucked it up and stuff, and so it keeps it relatively dry. And then by which time it's thrashed, and I just toss it away, and then next fall I use new ones, and it's just easier that way now.
It rains on Vancouver Island, doesn't
Yeah, occasionally. Yeah, I think. Yeah,
And twice a year it even snows.
it? 300
Actually-
days a year.
it was supposed to be twice a year as of today, but unfortunately it stayed raining, so we've only had it once this year. So.
Woohoo.
Okay, so yeah, slight deviation here. Just talk about quickly firearm stuff. Like for those people that in the good old days could run AR platforms and stuff. There's like 1,000 different extractors, springs, firing pins, and everything else that you could probably get for under $10. That if you have one go flying, you're not replacing it unless you've got spares. And if you don't have spares, then they're coming from Brownells or across the country, you're waiting a couple weeks, right?
Show his hand. Who has ever taken apart a bolt carrier? And yep.
My hands up, but again, my
And
camera.
and I remember just it going somewhere in the garage, and I heard it like bounce off a few things. I'm like, no, I'm never finding that ever again.
Nope.
So, but I did have like an AR rebuild kit. It's like a bolt carrier rebuild kit that just comes with like the common pieces that everyone loses. So that saved my bacon. But yeah, instead of doing a field strip, I did a detail strip when I should have just done a field strip, and I lost some pieces. So
Yeah, and then like these distractor springs for the air bolts and stuff, they're like $1.47. Like, I mean, they're nothing, right?
right, but who has them? I mean, to your point, it's Brownells, and it's like $30 for shipping. And
Well, but TNA now, True North Arms it's in Ontario. I can't remember where. I think it's near Allen's neck of the woods. But anyways, Stanley and the gang there, they've actually made a point of bringing in stuff like that now into Canada in bulk. And so we're basically getting better than U.S. prices right now on a lot of small parts, and they're all like, there's probably like 300 or 400 parts for sale on this website under $10.
that's perfect.
Yeah, so it's pretty good. So True North Arms, yeah, if anybody wants to check them out. I mean, I don't recommend a lot of their stuff because they also do source from China a lot, but for stuff like that, it's actually pretty good. Yeah, we talked about O-rings for tubs last week, so plumbing items, there's no shortage.
Can I share something on that?
Yeah.
I'm just going to share my screen for a second. So I bought this probably a year ago from Amazon, and it was $44 in Kazakhstan dollars here in Canada. But basically, you get what is it? It's SAE and metric O-rings for automotive purposes, but they literally have almost every size the home gamer could use, right? And for $44, it's probably one of the best purchases I've made.
That's literally what I saw last week when the Island Mentor was trying to help me out with the bathtub thing. I was like, "Where'd you get that?" So that was Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon, $44. Just search for. I mean, if you look at, you see at the top, I just searched for O-ring, and it's the first one that came up. And I remember ordering it, and I have it in my toolbox. I mean, I've probably used it 3 or 4 times now, but every time I've gone to use it, it's had the size that I need it in there. So there may be some really exotic sizes that this kit won't have, but for the most part, it's got you covered. And for $44, like seriously, yeah.
And it's not like they really go bad as long as you take care of them. And yeah.
Right, and I mean they all have like this pretty oily, like they look pretty clean in here, but they actually come with like a fairly oily outside. So I think they have some type of protective film on them that means that they won't dry out. But yeah, it's a really good deal for $44.
You got another use for Vaseline.
Yeah.
Sure, Alan. What's the first use?
Cotton balls.
Cotton balls to make fire.
Yeah,
Oh, right.
What were you thinking?
Yeah, what's the other use, Hughes?
Next.
Hoses, not just garden hoses, like and having O-rings for those same hoses. Like again, you get a leaky hose of some sort. Plumbing supplies are quite important, like hose clamps. And again, $1.47 maybe for a hose clamp, a small one. Can't hurt to have a bunch of those hanging around, right?
And even just some common stuff. I mean, if your house is all copper, just get a couple 4-foot lengths of copper tubing, get some elbows, some T's, get some basic, some shark bites if you have PEX. That's what I have, right? So I bought a bag of, 1/2 inch and a bag of 3/4 inch, and I bought the $60 tool that places them on the tube, and then that's it. And then I do have a couple lengths, like a couple 8-foot lengths of PEX, should I need to replace a section or whatnot. But I mean, this is stuff that's going to be a small investment. It's going to save you a trip to Home Depot, and if you're in a situation where Home Depot is not open, it's perfect. So
yeah, I mean, same thing with copper pipe. They got those preloaded sections of pre-soldered ones where you basically just put the joiner on there and you just heat it up and it just automatically solders it for you. Yep. And it's pretty awesome.
And there are even shark bites and like crimp-on connectors for copper as well, so you can not even just PEX. So whatever you've got in your house, those emergency repairs are fantastic. Even if you manage to screw something up and just need an end cap, so you can cap off part of your system until
I've seen those for copper too. Yeah, you can like a friction fit, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a friction fit or compression fit. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, that's good.
Yep.
Same for electrical repairs. I mean, just have a small spool or at least a section of 14.2, 14.3 wire, some barrettes. I mean, probably less likely to do electrical repairs than you are to do the plumbing repairs, right?
But still, a cut line is still a cut line. So between electrical tape and barrettes, I mean, it's like if you have to do a quick repair, it's
splicing a connection. Yep.
Yep. Exactly.
Just if you are doing that, just a word of caution. open up the wall and don't close it in until you've actually made a complete repair from box to box, because you'll create a significant fire hazard if you do that.
Well, by code, you can't also plaster over
A box.
right? So
All connections have to be contained in a box, and the box has to be accessible all the time. So that's.
I had a friend that bought a house who he was putting something on the wall and he hit something, and I don't know how he did it, but he took an electrical tester and he put it up against the wall, and he was reading it. There was something there, and there was actually a hidden box where wires were just basically electrical taped and they drywalled over it. So it's that kind of stuff that's going to cause a fire, right? So,
Yep.
But people do it.
Yep.
Or builders do it too. I mean, just cutting corners, right? It's like, as far as they're concerned, the owners will never know. It's no big deal.
Yep.
Anyway, neither here nor there. Miscellaneous tools. We mentioned that. Zip ties, same thing. Like, get a package of zip ties from Princess Auto.
Princess Auto has this really cool multi-pack. It's a big jar, like a double-sized Pringles can, with 20 different lengths and a bunch of different colors, and that should last you a really long time, unless you're doing really weird stuff with zip ties, and that will save you a ton of oh crap moments.
Now, word of caution, I know we have in the past said, go to your local dollar store, Dollar Tree, or Dollarama, depending if you're in Canada or US, and get some tools. But zip ties are probably not something you want to buy from the dollar store. You really get what you pay for. A lot of them are made from really brittle plastic, and they won't even, if they're advertised to take a 3-pound load, they'll take like a pound, right? So versus the ones you can get at places like Harbor Freight or Princess Auto, still pretty cheap, but a lot of these are advertised to take, let's say, 15 pounds, and their break strength is like 45, right? So definitely get what you pay for when it comes to zip ties.
Yeah. Other one cheap thing that was tea lights, and not just for heating, not just for light, but also I turned out today you use them to actually purify lead when you're melting down lead weights. You actually use it as a flux, and you just kind of
really
take out impurities with it. Yeah, I just learned that learned that today. So there you go.
A few tea lights under under a terracotta pot will create a nice little heat source.
Yeah. Last thing I had was padlocks. Just even the dollar store ones. Not so much as actual security or actual anything else. Just deterrence and visual more than anything else.
Or put it in a sock and hit somebody with it.
Yeah, exactly. It'll keep people, honest people, out for sure, and even the mildly criminal, but not the determined criminal. But at least mild padlocks will help.
So one thing I've done is for those as well is I've kept I keep like 5 of those fairly cheap disc detainer padlocks in my get home bag, in my bug out bag, and it is some additional weight. But if it's something where I don't want somebody to follow me and I have the opportunity to lock a gate behind me or lock a fence or anything, I'll do so. Again, these aren't the greatest padlocks. They're not that expensive, but it acts as a deterrent and it's going to slow people down, right? So if you have an opportunity to do that, fences, gates, anything like that, doors, anything that has a hasp on it, lock it behind you. So at least, if you need to shelter in place, at least that gives you some security, right?
Some warning, yeah.
Some warning, exactly. So, right, because if somebody's just going to open a door, you're not going to have any time at all. As if instead, if they have to beat down a lock or cut a lock, that's going to give you some heads up, right? So,
cool. And let's see, that's pretty much all I had. Alan, you had some extra stuff here too, didn't you?
We put a few things in. This is a couple of listener submissions. So Scott, who's in the chat, he sent a few things. Now I added gasket makers. We were talking about those O-rings that you couldn't find the other day. A tuba gasket maker, you can get that from any auto parts store. You can spread it in there and have the same effect. Silicone adhesive will do wonders for just about anything. I actually saw a guy put a cinder block back together after it had been struck by a truck. I wouldn't recommend that, but silicone will stick anything to anything. Or construction adhesive like PL 2000, PL Premium. Yeah. Glues anything to anything. Can of lubricant, not WD-40. WD-40 is not a lubricant, by the way. It is a penetrating oil and a rust inhibitor. But something like my favorite, and it's not a brand specific thing, but 3-in-1 silicone lubricant. I've used that in locks and door hardware for years and years and years, and it does a great job. Same with so I'm sticking with a 3-in-1 brand just because it seems to be popular and easy to come by. They're lithium grease. They're white lithium grease in a spray can. if it doesn't stick and it's supposed to, that's a good thing to have. So Scott reminded us of the rule of Home Depot: never work on your house when you can't get to the store before it closes.
Unless you don't have a choice.
Unless you don't have a choice, right? And that's why we have this. So he mentioned shark bites. We've talked about that for all the little immediate things that we need to do. Grab some reading glasses from the dollar store in various intensities. Just in case. That can give you the help you need. Keep the silica packets from literally everything you buy. They can be reused in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Especially keep the moisture down for sure.
Yep, absolutely. Couple of pairs of flip flops. Again, you can get those from the dollar store or Old Navy for pretty cheap. I think they're $1.99 at Old Navy, in a few different sizes. Just keep your if you end up with somebody at your house that you weren't expecting, or at your bug out location, it can keep you their cold feet off the or keep their feet off the cold floor. In come wintertime, grab a crazy carpet. The really cheap, like the flexible kind of roll up toboggans. Anytime you need to reduce weight or reduce friction on something, they're great. They're a great tool for that. In the rescue world, we get the heavy duty thing. We call it a sked, and it costs $3,000. You can buy two of them at the dollar store though, and they won't last as long, but they'll do a very similar job. So they just reduce friction. You can slide anything across the grass, across the ground, and a lot less effort.
Also, if you're out running a Yeti, that helps too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to think of a use for it for a bug out or something. I was like, yeah, I suppose outrunning the snow Sasquatch. I don't know.
If the Sasquatch is after you, or put it down and they can slip on it, it's like a giant banana peel.
That's right.
A box of assorted nuts and bolts.
Yep.
Because you never have the right size when you intend to have the right size. And then throw in a box of deck screws for anything outside and a box of drywall screws for anything inside. Cheap and convenient. The drywall screws will rust, so you don't want to use them outside. And the deck screws are more expensive. You don't want to use them inside if you don't need to.
And never throw out nuts and bolts. I mean,
Nope.
Seriously. I mean, just hoard those things, right? I mean,
That's why you got the 90-year-old guy that has like the coffee cans full of them on his workbench.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Bane Ironhand brings up a good point. He says the translucent zip ties only last a couple of years, and even if kept in the dark, but the colored ones seem to last better. I've actually found the exact same thing as well. Like the whitish ones seem to kind of go like that milky kind of color, and then kind of the shatter, and then the colored ones seem to do better.
I remember reading that some of the black ones I picked up from Princess Auto were UV stabilized. So obviously, if you're going to have them outdoors, the UV stabilized ones are going to mean that plastic is going to last a lot longer, right? So.
Yeah, and he also mentions the fact that the crazy carpets make good cutting boards if you need to do big meat processing jobs and outdoor food prep. Easy to sanitize. So that's actually a really good point.
Yep. And also, if you need to drag a piece of game, or a piece of game, if you need to drag an animal out of the woods, it's less effort than dragging them across the ground.
I've actually seen that where guys have put two crazy carpets kind of zip tied together, actually, and then they were using it to reduce the friction from pulling a deer out of the woods.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Just don't try and pull the crazy carpet, pull the deer.
Right, yeah.
Rope up to the deer and then pull that with something under it. Yeah.
Yeah, they were still pulling it from the antlers, but they basically had the crazy carpets underneath it to reduce the friction. So,
Yep.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually. Cool. That's pretty much
And
all I had.
there are a million other little things. I mean, because I'm a safety nerd, you can never have enough safety glasses. They are a super cheap and simple way to protect yourself if you're doing anything.
and also every pair of safety glasses I have are all scratched up, so I'm always reaching for a new pair that end up getting scratched up anyway.
Yeah, so buy the cheap ones because you're only going to use them once or twice.
They're only $1, yeah. So
Yes.
Yep.
yeah, we get them for $1.25, and they already come pre-covered in a little plastic wrap, so you just pull the wrap off, and they're perfectly pristine when you need them. So
Yep. Nitrile gloves.
Yeah.
Or vinyl. Vinyl or nitrile. If you can get nitrile, they're better. But vinyl or nitrile are just, again, keep yourself clean and tidy. And go back and listen to our sanitization episode about that, or our sanitation episode.
Just
But
be
you can-
careful. I found that some people have bought some of the cheaper nitrile gloves that are really, really thin, and just putting them on will sometimes rip the gloves.
Absolutely.
Get something that's a little thicker. I know, like mechanics have the black ones, which I think are 10 mil. I want to say
Yeah,
10
they're
mil,
thick.
but
Yep.
they're really thick. Those are probably a little bit too thick. But I think I found that I found some surgical ones that actually go down to about halfway down your elbow or your forearm. I'm sorry, halfway down your forearm. They're really skookum as far as the grade of them, and I've never had them rip on me. I use those for working around the garage and all kind of stuff. They are a bit more expensive. They're not like $10 a box, but the additional coverage that they give you and the thickness is great. So
If
If you happen to be, I was
delivering a cow, you're good to go, right? Just
trying to make the same
Hey.
joke, Ian.
yeah. Yeah, our vet friend was telling us that story where the first time she had to put on the arm length glove to reach in there and kind of reorganize things. I was like, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's a thing. So
It's a thing.
reorganize things. Okay.
yeah, well, when you got the umbilical cord wrapped around the wrong, around the neck or something, and they're trying to give birth to this cow, and yeah, you want to save the calf, and yeah, it's a thing.
It's a thing.
Yeah,
What was
podcast
that
challenge
movie?
time.
City Slickers. Yes, they had to do that, and he lost his watch.
Oh, that's right. And he kind of pointed at him and let loose some stuff too.
Podcast challenge. Do an inventory of your critical preps and add the small parts as required. I'll take that one step further and organize them in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Upcoming events. So, in the fact that pretty much everything's canceled for the foreseeable future,
Everything's canceled.
I was actually trying to think of doing a new section, like a semi-regular section here called Deal of the Week. So maybe we'll all try and see if we can find something that's on sale for cheap that's preparedness related. So, as we were talking about earlier today with the ammunition frantic panic buying down the States, luckily enough, there's some made in Canada shotgun shells that they source the hulls from France and they make the rest of it in Canada. It's called Challenger shot shells. Anyways, they're on sale right now at Cabela's for $7 a box, which is pretty much half the price of anything else. And for the next week or so, you got a chance to stock up on some like bird shot that's basically hunting equivalent. It's the same type of load, same weight of load, everything else is a regular hunting ammo, but it's dirt cheap right now. So
Nice.
I threw the link in there for some 12 gauge shot shells.
I can add, going back to those organizations and all those little parts and pieces. Princess Auto flyer this week had the little parts cabinets. So they've got, I think there's 60 drawers. What are they, 2x2 by 4-inch deep drawers, 6-inch deep drawers, for $30. It's usually 50 or 60 for those things, and they're a good deal and they're good quality. You buy those, they last forever. It's not something that's going to break on you, but those are absolutely fantastic for organizing your parts and pieces.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I had. Shoutouts, Alan, you got anybody?
Well, I'll shout out Scott. He was on the 100th episode. He was one of our guests, and he was a major contributor to the stuff that we did tonight. So I didn't have to do anything, which was fantastic. So thank you, Scott, and hopefully we'll get you back on at some point soon.
Hughes, you got anybody?
No, I'm good.
All right, I got one for the new listener, Bill. First time listening tonight, and hopefully you enjoyed the show.
Welcome,
And so we got a shameless plug for the Amazon link. So just follow the Amazon link we throw in the show notes, and don't have to buy what you see there. But if you do your shopping from that point onwards, do all your searches and add to cart from there, I do believe Rapid Survival gets a bit of a kickback on that and helps offset the cost of the hosting and everything else. So randomly plugging that. Let's see here. Bane Ironhand does ask, does organizing include putting all your lists on the same lists? I have 3 lists that I can't, so I can find anything, probably. Well, I suppose having maybe a cross-reference, an index, maybe for your lists, would that help?
Put everything in a spreadsheet on multiple. Like you can do multiple tabs in your workbook, and then anytime you're looking for something, Control F to find, type in what you're looking for, and it'll find it for you.
Cool.
That's the easiest way I can think of to do it.
All right. I've got a email review from Glenn Tate, author of the 299 Days series.
Glenn.
Yes, it's a combination of email to us and a plug for his own stuff, but that's all right. I told him I'd plug it for him. So he just said, I put out some flashcards to teach preppers the practical and not geeky technical stuff they need to know about ham radio. Too many preppers view ham radio as some sort of complicated hill that's too high to climb. So he made a PAM radio. Basically, it's like prepper amateur radio. PAM radio tells them what they need to know in about 45 minutes and includes links specific to vetted radios and accessories that will work. PAM radio is a godsend to preppers trying to check comms off on their long prepping to-do list. So I put a link in there. The info on PAM radio is about 95% applicable to Canadian hams, and the rest of the 5% is like US radio rigs, but it's still pretty good. And basically what it is, it's a bunch of flashcards. He gives you a bunch of videos on the website. I took a look at it already, and so there's a bunch of preview videos for each of the flashcards, and basically if you're willing to pay $15, he sends you everything you need to know to pass the test, basically.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of a neat step. It's a good website, so
I might
check
get
it out.
that.
I think I might order that tonight because I think I'm the only podcaster that doesn't have his ham license.
I think you are.
I think I am.
You're on that, Bruce.
And the website is www.pam-radio.com. So for the listeners, and I'll throw it in the show notes as well. Anything else, guys?
That's all I got.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, I'm going to bring episode 102 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Please help us out and submit a review. It helps other people find us.
We do record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want an early peek at the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast. Click the notifications tab. Gives you an alert when we're going live. Do the exact same thing on Facebook if that's your preferred media. You can contact me directly, Alan, that's with one L, at prepperpodcast.ca.
And I can be reached at hfxprepper@gmail.com.
Right on. You can reach Ian directly by emailing me at thewesternretreat@gmail.com. You can also find me on Canadian Patriot Podcast on iTunes and YouTube. There you can find us discussing why government waste in society makes me get fixated on spare parts. Thanks for joining us. Till next time, be prepared, stay safe,
And keep learning.